What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Monte Poker episode 30. For all of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Monte. This is my YouTube channel. I go play cash game sessions at my local casinos and or card rooms, record while we're doing so, try to get the content during that session, get the best hands, the worst hands, things we played great, played terribly, compile them into a nice little YouTube video for you all to watch after, and that's about it. For my returning viewers, I'm going to try a slightly different format, and so I'm going to cut over to me day of the session and give you my real-time thoughts. I hope you enjoy. See you at the end.
What is up, ladies and gents and germs? We are over at Outlaws Card Parlor up in Atascadero, as per usual, our favorite place to play here on the Central Coast. So, I really enjoyed this kind of format where I'm actually talking to you guys in real time as we're playing. So I think I'm going to mix it up a little bit and do just commentary before, during, and after for the vlog. I'm going to try it out this session, see how it goes. It is currently 5:30 p.m. on a Thursday. There's not a game going, but we're waiting on a couple players to show up. It's going to be a short session because we do have work tomorrow, so I'm only going to get to play for a couple of hours, but that's where we're at. Gonna go hop on the table. See you guys in a bit.
All right, so we start off this session with $320 in our stack right around 6 p.m. and is now about 7 o'clock before we get to our first hand of the night. We're on the big blind with $3 already in there. There's an open to $10 by the cutoff. The button, Miss Margot, raises it up to 30 when we look down at pocket aces. I do decide to put in the call here. An argument can be made for raising, but since the button is short stacked, I'm trying to let one of the bigger stacks into the pot here to try and make some more money with this hand. Anyhow, we go 3 ways to this flop, which comes out Jack King 5 with 3 diamonds. We have an overpair to this board, and we have the nut flush draw, so there's no reason for us to really be afraid here. I decide to go for a 2/3 pot size bet here of $60, and our opponent in the cutoff snap folds. Margot snap calls. I show our pocket aces. She shows pocket queens with the queen of diamonds. The 4 of diamonds on the turn gives us the nuts and no way for Margot to possibly win. Bit unfortunate that another opponent wasn't able to pick up a piece of it, but we got $184 coming our way. And this next hand is a good example of why you shouldn't play certain hands in early position versus late position. We look down at 8-9 suited on the big blind. There's an $18 open with some dead money out there, so I put in the call and we go to this flop heads up. The board runs out 9 King 5 rainbow, so we hit middle pair here. This particular opponent that we're playing against likes to play a very wide range and he likes to play aggressively, so when he starts grabbing chips to bet here, I'm going to put in a call when I hit the board most of the time. He could be doing this with a king, a 9, or a 5. Also any pair between deuces all the way up to pocket 8s in my opinion. So when he bets $15 on this flop here, we very quickly put in the call and we go off to the turn, which brings in the 7 of diamonds. We check it over one more time and our opponent decides to size up here to $40. We now have a straight draw to go along with our second pair, so I'm not going to go anywhere for this amount. The river brings a 10 of diamonds, unfortunately not improving us to a straight. It looked very close, but we needed a 6, not a 10. At this point, I was thinking about putting a chunky bet size out there to try and steal this pot, but as I mentioned, this particular opponent is very aggressive and likes to play a wide range, so it's very possible that he has some sort of weird 2 pair here. Also, if he has a king, he's never folding top pair, so I think it's just far more risky to try and bluff this particular player off this hand with just 3rd pair. So I do decide to check it a 3rd time. Our opponent announces that he just has a 9. I say, me too, what's your kicker? He shows his ace-9. His ace-9 is good. We tap the felt, which is a poker indicator for saying nice hand to an opponent, and then kick ourselves for calling with this hand out of position. If we would have been second to act, we would have picked up some information that would have let us bet on the river and take this pot down. Moving on. For this next hand, there was a limp from the under the gun player. Middle position open to $15. I decided to bump it up to $40 with pocket jacks in the cutoff. Middle position put in the call, but everyone else folded. Go to this board that comes comes out queen, jack, queen. Flop a full house, but unfortunately, unless our opponent has a queen, I don't expect him to be continuing a whole lot of the time on this board. And the fact that there's two queens out there just makes it even less likely that he's holding one. So when our opponent checks it over to us, I do decide to check it back to try and let him catch up. Then a 4 of hearts comes on the turn. He checks it to us one more time, and at this point we have to bet here. I decide to go with a bet sizing of around $40. It's about half the pot, and if he calls here, it'll make this pot around $160, and then we can go for a very big bet on the river and hope that he thinks that we're full of it. Our opponent thinks it over for about 30 seconds, but does ultimately put in the call. So we go to this river, which brings a 7 of spades. Doesn't complete any of the flush or straight draws, and when our opponent checks it a third time, I think the only thing that makes sense here is to go with a very large sizing. If we do a quarter or even a third pot size bet, it's just going to look like a queen a lot of the time from our end. So I'd rather go bigger and make it look like we're trying to bluff to steal the pot, and then he might call us with some single pair holdings. For example, if he has pocket 5s, pocket 6s, pocket 8s, 9s, or 10s, or if by some miracle he's holding the only jack that's unaccounted for and he doesn't believe that we have a queen. Our opponent asks the dealer for the count. The dealer tells him that the bet is $125, which is a fantastic sign. It means our opponent is at least considering putting in the call. After a few minutes of mulling it over, he does put the chips in the middle. We flip over our jacks and he returns his cards to the dealer face down. We never find out what he had, but we do find out that we're getting $410 added to our stack. Second hour of the session seemed to be a hot one. We got a lot of premium, and this hand is no exception. We look down at ace king of diamonds. A few players tried to limp in, so when Margot raises to $12 on the button, I decided to re-raise it up to $35, trying to get the weak hands out of the mix. Board runs out 10-5-5 with 2 clubs. Not a great flop for our hand here, but since we did put in the 3-bet pre-flop, we're going to have a lot of the big pocket pairs here, and also the hand that we currently have, ace king. But as long as Margot doesn't have ace 10 or a pocket pair herself, she is going to fold to a c-bet on this flop a majority of the time. So I line up $50 in chips here and push it across the line, and almost instantly Margot announces raise to 100. Now I'm just confused. She only made it $12 pre-flop. She could be playing ace 5 here, but I don't think she would have called a raise to $35 with ace 5, especially when she only had 200 and some change behind. She could have ace 10, but I don't see her raising this much with ace 10. Trying to figure out what's going on here, but even though I don't really believe her, I'm not really sure that we can call here with just ace king. She did min click it, so this seems ridiculously strong in my opinion. To my newer players, min click just means she min raised us. I bet 50, so she made it 100, which means I'm getting a great price to put in the call. Problem is we don't really have anything to continue here with. We have 2 overs to the board, but if she has a 5, our over cards are no good. I don't have a flush draw, so I think for all those reasons we just need to let our hand go. It's a great hand pre-flop, but unfortunately when you miss everything, there's not really much you can do with it. Fortunately, Miss Margot is nice enough to show everybody that she had pocket queens and had us in real rough shape on this flop. The very next hand, we looked down at ace 9 of spades on the button. We limped in with a few people into this pot, so there's 24 in the middle, and we flopped the nut flush. The action checks over to me, and for some reason I decided to check it back. I think on the button it would make more sense for us to put in a small bet. Anyhow, the 4 of diamonds peels off on the turn, and Margot decides to bet $15 here. I debate between just calling and raising, and ultimately elected with the call. That way, if anybody had a king, like maybe Margot, she would keep firing on the river. But then the 7 of spades peels off. I don't think any single pair holdings are going to pay us off here if we go for a big bet on this river. So I'm just really hoping that somebody has a queen or jack of spades potentially that'll pay us off here, since there's 4 spades on the board. I decide to fire here for $60, which is about a pot size bet, basically indicating that I have a flush or nothing, and I'm praying that someone decides to look us up with a flush themselves. The big blind eventually decides to put in the call. We show him the ace high flush. He shows us the queen of spades for the queen high flush. Obviously it's no good. We end up scooping this $180 pot. Although I do feel like I left some money on the table by not starting to bet on the flop. Please let me know what you guys would have done in this situation. situation in the comments below. And if you do bet the flop, how much more or less would you have bet, considering you were holding most of the spades in play? This next hand is just absolutely ridiculous, but I had to include it on the vlog because I cannot believe what happened here. There was a $15 straddle by Under the Gun. I told everybody I was going to call blind, so I put in the call, and there were multiple callers going to the flop. On the flop, the Under the Gun player decided to bet. At this point, I had to look down at my hand, saw that I had a pair of sixes and also a king high flush draw, so I put in the call for an additional $20. Then on this turn, which is a 5 of clubs, the player on the button decided to bet $40. I did some quick math here, and it was going to cost me $40 to make a pot of potentially 200, and the other player was already all in, so I did not have to worry about a raise. I'm getting the right price to chase my flush here, so I'm pretty much stuck calling in this situation, so I did end up calling the $40. And the river brings us a 2 of spades. We miss our flush. I check it over to the button. He checks it back. Nobody seems to want to show their hand, so I announce that I have a 6, and it is somehow good. One of our opponents had ace high with the ace of diamonds. The other opponent had 8-9 suited, but it was 2 black cards. So somehow my measly pair of sixes is actually good. For the next hand, we pick up another premium, ace queen offsuit on the big blind. I decide to raise to $20 because there were a couple people trying to limp in. Under the Gun, hijack, and small blind all call. Luckily, we did lose the cutoff, but we're still going to this board 4 ways. $83 in the middle, and the board comes ace, king, deuce with 2 diamonds. I expect us to have the best hand a lot of the time on this board here. If anybody had ace, king, they definitely would have raised before us pre-flop. Same thing goes for pocket aces and pocket kings. The only real hand I'm afraid of in this situation is pocket deuces, but we're not going to play afraid of monsters under the bed. That being said, since I think I have the best available hand in this situation, while I think I should be betting a lot of the time, I decided to play this one a bit tricky and go for the check instead, with plans of check raising if anybody bets on this flop. And it looks like some lobster got caught in our trap. The opponent in the hijack decides to bet $30 here. The small blind folds, and when the action gets back to me, I start lining up chips for a raise. $65 sounds like a good amount to me. This should be enough to get Under the Gun out of the way and hopefully fold any straight or flush draw he might be on, but keep the hijack involved. Unfortunately, Under the Gun puts in a call pretty quickly, and when the action gets back to the hijack, he puts in the call as well. 278 in the middle, 3 of us still involved, and the turn comes a queen of hearts. This gives us 2 pair, but it isn't a great card because Jack 10 now makes a straight. But when I think about it a bit longer, I realize that Jack 10 probably shouldn't be calling a check raise on the flop unless it is specifically Jack 10 of diamonds. More likely situation is that we're up against a flush draw and an ace. So for those reasons, I do decide to continue betting on this card here. I go for a little under half pot here, $125, and the Under the Gun player snap calls, which I found very odd. The hijack ends up folding, so we go off to this river, heads up, and it comes the king of clubs. This sucks. I check the option over to the Under the Gun player, and he goes all in almost immediately for $330. Man, this is a very troublesome river. We had 2 pair on the turn, and our 2 pair just got counterfeited. So all we have is aces and kings with a queen kicker, and to make matters even worse, if our opponent only has an ace, there's a queen on the board, so our kicker doesn't even play. We'd be chopping with another ace. Now we have some things to go over. We already determined that aces and kings wouldn't be played this way because they would have raised pre-flopped, so those are out of the question. We also determined that Jack 10 would not be involved in this hand unless it was specifically Jack 10 of diamonds. And now that the board is paired, I don't expect Jack 10 to go all in because there's a potential full house on the board. That being said, the only potential full houses that I think are available would be pocket 2s or pocket queens. And I don't think pocket queens would call the flop after there was a bet plus re-raise. Pocket deuces, on the other hand, might have been slope playing the flop and then just flatted when there was a raise plus re-raise. But once 2 flush draws and a straight draw are on the board, I think pocket deuces would have bet for protection on the turn. So the only possible hand that's left that gets here that makes sense is king queen. And even then, king queen doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there was an ace on the flop with a raise and a re-raise. So after thinking it over for a bit, the only thing that could possibly be doing this, in my opinion, is a missed flush draw. And although I'm fairly certain that this is the case, I don't want to call and be wrong because we have all of our profit currently in the middle of the table. And if I lose what I have behind, we're going to be stuck $300 and have to grind all that back up. But ultimately, I did decide that our opponent's story didn't make much sense. I flicked in the chip for the call. Our opponent announces that I'm good. I show our ace, and he does eventually flip over his cards and show that he had Jack 4 of diamonds for the missed flush draw. Our opponent definitely put on the pressure, but luckily we were able to sniff this one out and scoop this $1,200 pot. All right, guys, so we just made a wonderful hero call. Heart's still beating after that one, not gonna lie. That was a pretty sick call on our part. I'm sure I'm gonna break it down in the vlog, but the story just didn't make sense. Anyway, that was crazy. We're running it up. You got to color up the middle of it, but oh, go ahead. Yeah, sick run tonight. We've been pretty card dead since then. We'll see if we can catch another 1 or 2 hands. I don't want to just completely knit up. I don't want to completely just knit up and not give people a chance to make their money back, but we are going to just keep playing our game. All right, catch you guys in the next one. So nothing too interesting really happened after that last hand, so I'll just let some b-roll play of the last relevant hand that we played while I go over the session stats with you guys. So we bought in for a total of 320, ended up cashing out 1170 for a total profit of $850 over the course of a 4-hour session. Pretty great hourly return, only in for 1 bullet and got more than a triple up and almost a full quadruple up. Definitely very needed after our terrible run in Vegas. Slowly building up that bankroll and shooting to get that 10K mark once again. And to anybody that was paying attention to the hand, we did end up winning this with top pair and didn't have to get there with our flush draw. Off to the cage. Hey guys, I forgot to do a end of vlog update. We just kind of took off and went home at 10 o'clock because it was time to go. Sitting over here with Margot. We got Ari in the works. We're watching some anime and having dinner. But session went really well overall. We cashed out for $11.70 after we left an $11 tip. Probably would have left a little more if we weren't stuck literally 5K from our Vegas trip. But it was a good session overall. Nothing really too eventful happened after that big hero call. So we ended up making a little over 1100 instead of cashing out just about 1100. Yeah, I don't know.
And I lost my bankroll.
And Margot lost her bankroll.
Good times.
Rather unfortunate. Bad timing too, because she doesn't have a job right now, so she's gonna have to wait a while until she can play again. She's gonna have to get a job, pay off some of her debts, and spin it back up, run it back up. But that's the poker hustle.
Yep.
Is what it is. So I turn you over to future me, who is going to be editing this video and has more commentary. Peace. Well, future me doesn't have much more for you guys. That's about it. So thank you guys for stopping by. Appreciate all the love and support. Sorry we didn't post last week. I was very busy. Not sure if I mentioned that in the intro or not. I already forgot. We'll be back on our normal posting schedule for next week. And since I'm taking a break from cash for about a month, you might be getting 2 a week. We'll see. I think my other camera went out while I was talking. Oh well, that's it. See you guys next time. Take care of yourselves. Good luck on the felt. Peace.